Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to get started. We are waiting for a few more people, so I think people will kind of filter in as the event goes on, but just in the interest of time, we're going to get started. So I am going to throw it to the Alberta Aviation Museum to get us started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Women of Aviation Worldwide Week celebration. Our wonderful event here, Soaring Opportunities. This is a wonderful event. We have partnered up with STEM Sisters and with Kendra Kincaid, from the founder of Elevate Aviation. A little bit about the museum. The Alberta Aviation Museum is located just at the now closed City Centre Airport. Is now the new BLATCHFORD Field Developments. We've been here for a number of years, since 1990, I believe, and we're here to preserve the history of aviation and how aviation developed the city of Edmonton, and it was the gateway to the north for the northern communities. I will pass this on to Kendra.
Hey, there we go. Hi. Shake that off. How are you? My name is Katherine Kincaid. I'm the founder of Elevate Aviation, and have we got a fantastic panel for you today. We went all out on our panel. I can't wait to share them. Elevate Aviation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to get women into aviation, and we hope that today's session does just that.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Amy. I'm one of the co-founders of STEM Sisters, and we're an Edmonton-based organization whose goal is to create a supportive community for women in male-dominated fields, particularly in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math. Through social media conversations and community events such as this, we try and bring women and their allies together. We'd really like to thank the Alberta Aviation Museum and Elevate Aviation for partnering with us for this event, as none of this would have been possible without them. We're really excited about this event, and we're going to take you on the past, present, and future of women in aviation, and we really hope that everyone will take something away from the event. Before we get started, we just wanted to go through a few housekeeping items. So I think everyone's probably used to the virtual world we live in, but if you do get disconnected, please just wait a minute or two. Zoom will try to automatically reconnect you. And if you don't automatically get reconnected, please exit and try to re-enter the event. If you continue to have technical difficulties, just email us at stems.yeg@gmail.com for assistance. All of you should be able to see a Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. This is how we're asking you guys to submit your questions for both the presentation that the Alberta Aviation Museum will do and the Elevate Aviation panel. Make sure you also keep an eye on the Q&A chat, as you'll be able to see questions from everyone. And if you really want to know the answer to a question, make sure to like it. The more likes a question gets, the farther up the list it moves. If you need to communicate with one of us directly, please use the chat function, not the Q&A function. The chat function should also be at the bottom of your screen. We'll also be launching a few polls throughout the event. Make sure to answer these, but they are just for fun. The event is being recorded and will be posted to the Alberta Aviation Museum's website and Facebook pages on Wednesday, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. And finally, we will be drawing door prizes throughout the event. These prizes will only be available to people within Alberta, so apologies if anybody is outside Alberta, and for those following us on one of our social media platforms. If you don't already, please find STEMS, Elevate, or the Alberta Aviation Museum on Instagram, Facebook, and/or Twitter. Links to all social media are available in the registration email that you were sent, or the links are in the chat. So speaking of prizes, let's do our first draw. So our first door prize goes to Katie Knoll. Katie, are you on the call? I don't see Katie. Okay, we will redraw until we find someone who's here. And Nick is showing the awesome we have. So, Chandra. I also don't see Chandra. Okay, this is not going well. Let me do it. Like, sorry guys, I'm just doing a random number generator.
Amy, she says she's here in the chat. It's under Kaylin.
Oh, okay. Kaylin. Okay, I will message you. Thank you. So congratulations, Kaylin. You won the STEMS door prize. So we will be in contact with you to get some more information from you. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, let's get this started. So first up, Jean, the Executive Director of the Alberta Aviation Museum, will be providing us with a presentation on the history of Alberta women's contributions to the aviation industry, highlighting their trailblazing stories in an otherwise male-dominated industry.
Thank you, Amy. Welcome, everyone. Once again, my name is Jean Lauzon. I'm the Executive Director here at the Alberta Aviation Museum. Just to start off, the museum is currently located just beside BLATCHFORD Field. It's a very historic and significant building. The hangar is one of the last double-wide, double-long hangars that was built and put up for the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan. So not only does it have and hold a great vast history of aviation in the city and in Alberta, it also is actually residing in a historically designated, both provincially and municipally, building itself. Let's move on into women in aviation, a brief history. The topic of women in aviation is almost impossibly large, especially for me to condense it down in a 20-minute conversation. It's 240 years of history worldwide, so we're bound to have a few gaps and miss out quite a chunk of it. So please bear with us and we'll try and cover as much as we can. Well, like most good stories, let's start at the beginning. Where to begin? Since humans have been dreaming about soaring above the clouds since they could dream, we'll start with when having some successes at making these dreams a reality in both hot air and gas-filled balloons that could carry men and women aloft. In the 1780s was a pivotal time in Europe. French Revolution had concluded, and it was a bridge between the Age of Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution. In 1783, two Frenchmen, Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier and Marquis François Laurent Delande, they both took the first untethered free flight in a Montgolfier designed hot air balloon, demonstrating this to the King Louis XVI of France. Ballooning captured the imaginations throughout Europe, and many people building balloons and taking flight. They were not recognized only as just a fun and novel idea, but it was also very useful for scientific observations, mapping, and military reconnaissance. Short little timeline, 21st of November 1783 was the first untethered flight. January of 1793, 10 years later, a French man becomes the first balloonist in the US. It wasn't until August 10th, 1840, does ballooning actually come to Canada, where a French-born, Boston-based professor, Louis Anson Laureat, is the first to fly a balloon in St. John, New Brunswick. Well, enough about the men. The first woman, Elisabeth Thibel, June 4th of 1794 in Lyon, France. Thibel is an actress and an opera singer, and she goes up in a balloon with a male pilot, Florent. Dressed as the Roman goddess Minerva, she and Florent sing the opera from the basket in midair during a demonstration flight for King Gustav of Sweden. Thibel is not just a passenger, though. Florent credits the success of the entire flight with her, as she was the one that was responsible for filling the firebox during the flight. The first woman to fly solo in a balloon is Sophie Blanchard, who was the wife of French balloon pioneer Jean-Pierre Blanchard. He was a pretty terrible business person. So in order for him to drum up the extra interest and the funds and the monies in order to do this, Sophie began accompanying him on his flights in 1804, so people would come to see the novelty of a woman flying. Well, little did they know, she immediately fell in love with flying and becomes a balloonist herself, flying solo in 1805. In 1809, unfortunately, her husband has a heart attack in mid-flight and falls out of the basket and dies. She persists with the ballooning, though, and becomes a well-known celebrity in France. In 1810, she's named the aeronaut of official festivals by Napoleon and the chief air minister of ballooning. Napoleon was, I think, particularly fond and admiring of her. That same year, though, Napoleon approaches her and asks her to draft up plans for an aerial invasion of England using hot air balloons. Regretfully, she informs him that the prevailing winds are not really in France's favor and is forced to abandon that wonderful idea. In 1811, she ruins the opening night of Carl Maria von Weber's opera, Sylvana, because she drew such a large crowd to watch her fly. Few people actually attended the opera. Also that same year, she takes several flights in Italy, including a flight from Rome to Naples. She even crosses over the Alps solo in a balloon, flying so high at times that she fell asleep from the oxygen deprivation at the high altitude. Luckily, she woke back up as the balloon gently descended in altitude. In 1814, after Napoleon's defeat, the monarchy is now back in power. So Louis XVIII forgives her Bonapartist ways and names her the official aeronaut of the Restoration. In 1819, though, Sophie becomes a statistic. She becomes the first woman killed in an aviation accident. Her fame had grown throughout Europe, and she was particularly well known for flying at night and incorporating pyrotechnics into her shows. Unfortunately, one night in Paris, her fireworks actually ignited her balloon's gas bag. On fire and descending very quickly, her basket struck the roof of a very tall house, and she was thrown from the basket to the street below. Unfortunately, she died of her injuries. Some of the reactions to Sophie Blanchard's death, unfortunately, many sort of tutted at that time that she had tried to fly too close to the sun, much like Icarus, and paid the ultimate price. American poet Granville Mellon said, referring to Sophie, that a woman in a balloon is either out of her element or too high in it. Another famous writer, Charles Dickens, writing in the mid-19th century, and again in reference to Sophie Blanchard, quipped that the jug that goes often to the well, but is pretty sure to get cracked at last, meaning that it was only a matter of time before disaster struck for Sophie. Women aeronauts. Of course, Sophie wasn't the only woman aeronaut active at the time, and we're going to quickly run through a few more. In 1700, Jean Gunnerin became the first woman to parachute from a balloon at a height of 900 meters, almost 3,000 feet, and later became a pioneering aeronaut. Starting in 1805, her niece, Eliza, Garnerin started learning how to fly a balloon. She was active in Italy, Spain, Russia, Germany, and France until 1836. From 1810 to 1830, Wilhelmina Reichard undertook balloon flights with her husband and later flew solo. Here we move to the 19th century, and in 1826, Margaret Graham, the wife of a British balloonist, becomes the first British woman to make a solo balloon flight, and she's active right up to 1850s. And finally, Louise Poitvin, also in concert with her husband, I note we're seeing a pattern here, was active as an aeronaut in France and Portugal. The second half of the 19th century marks the Victorian era in Britain and its colonies, and the ripples beyond. Victorian sensibilities dictated that women should have been at home, getting married, raising children, taking care of a family. Failing that, she should at least be employed in the childcare. But at the same time, the Industrial Revolution was also entering full swing, and increasing numbers of women found themselves working in non-traditional, often industrial roles. The practicalities of making a living clashed heavily with the Victorian ideals of the time. In the latter half of the 19th century, saw a rapid development in powered flight, and balloons that could be propelled and controlled becoming airships or dirigibles. Steam power was first fitted to a dirigible in 1850, and which was followed by the internal combustion engines in 1870s, and then electric motors in the 1880s. The first woman to pilot a powered aircraft was a 19-year-old American socialite, Ada de Acosta. While vacationing in Paris, she met the famous Brazilian aviator Alberto Santos Dumont, who was making a name for himself in Paris that summer by flying his own personal dirigible around the city. They became really fast friends, and he taught her to fly his dirigible, which she took it on a leisurely trip outside the city and promptly landing it amidst the polo match. Upon that happening, her parents were absolutely appalled and figured that she would be totally unmarriable if any man found out about the incident, since no proper man would want to marry such a lady, and forbid her to speak of the event. It wasn't until 1930 that she finally told the story to her husband and her friends. Now, moving on, I'm sure most of you have heard of the Wright brothers at some point in your lives, and most people know that they were the first to fly an aircraft on the 17th of December in 1903. Actually, the truth is a little bit more complicated, and here's where several people, and there were several people at the time, that had enjoyed some limited success with flying, but they are credited as being the first to fly an aircraft that could carry a person, be controlled, power itself, take off under its own power without assistance. What many don't know is that their youngest sister, Katherine, played a huge role in their success. Orville and Wilbur were famously shy and very awkward, while Katherine, their younger sister, was very charming and outgoing and very much an introvert, and she had a real sense for business. She ran their bicycle shop, which funded their aeronautical ventures, and in order to secure better contracts and connections, Katherine learned French in order to travel to France and meet with all the pioneering French aviators, establishing strong business ties for the fledgling Wright Company, which she was also a director of. France recognized her contributions from the start and awarded her the Legion d'Honneur alongside her brothers. Here we go, early 20th century, and we're back to the pilots. In 1908, we have the first woman passenger on an aircraft in Belgium, and later that year in France, Thérèse Pelletier becomes the first woman to fly on an aircraft solo. She was the friend of Léon de Lagrange, a French sculptor and budding aviator, and he taught her to fly in his Voisin 1907 biplane. Unfortunately, she gave up flying after he was killed in a crash. In 1910, Raymond de la Roche becomes the first woman in the world to earn a pilot's license, after 35 men before her. And so at that time, 97% of all licensed pilots were men, and only 3% were women. Some additional notable milestones. We'll go quickly through this list, and please take note of when and where more women pilots show up. So to start, we have Raymond de la Roche on the 8th of March, 1910, becoming the first woman to earn a pilot's license, and thus why we celebrate Women of Aviation on March 8th. In August, we have the second woman to earn a license, again in France. In September, in Belgium, we have the first woman to fly with a passenger aboard. And in November, another French woman becomes the third woman to earn her license. In November, we also get to know that the first woman pilot in Belgium, and December the 5th, the woman again, reign again in France. By this time, 313 men have pilot's licenses and only 5 women. We're down to 2% women and 98% men. Things aren't exactly moving in the right direction. In 1911, the 6th pilot is also from France. Harriet Quimby becomes the first American and 7th worldwide in August of 1911. When Hilda Hewlett becomes the first British woman to earn her license in August, 121 men have already achieved that honor in Britain. We're now down to 1% women and 99% men. In September of 1911, the first German woman becomes the 9th worldwide to earn a pilot's license. In October, a Dutch woman becomes the 10th. In November, Estonia gets their first. In 1912, 13, and 14, Hungary, Italy, Romania, and Switzerland follow suit. Of course, in 1914, the Great War erupts across Europe, which largely shuts down civilian flying across the continent, and then a couple of years later, in North America as well. Skipping ahead a bit, and to get out of Europe, we have Zhang Juan becoming the first Chinese woman pilot in 1916. Another milestone, Bessie Coleman becomes the first Black woman to earn a pilot's license. She was an American, but had to travel all the way to France to take lessons, as no one in America at the time would teach a Black woman. Times have changed. In 1922, Tadashi Hyodo becomes the first female pilot in Japan, and Kwon Kyuk, the first woman to earn a pilot's license in Korea. Now, Canada lags way behind. Eileen Volek is the first Canadian woman to get a pilot's license in 1928. Now we're going to skip back a little bit in time and take things a little bit more local. I had said that Eileen Volek was the first Canadian to get her license in 1928, but she certainly wasn't the first woman to fly in Canada. Along came Katherine Stinson. She was an American born in 1891. And when she was young, she was very much wanted to become a concert pianist. But lessons were quite expensive and often required going to Europe to learn from the very best. She looked at ways of paying for it and discovered that the exhibition pilots were being paid an enormous sum of money to travel to towns and cities and put on these exhibition flights. So she looked into becoming a pilot. Her first trip in a hot air balloon in 1911 immediately gave her the flying bug. She fell in love and sold her piano to pay for the flying lessons. Trouble was finding someone to actually teach her. She had an enormous difficulty finding someone that was willing to teach a woman to fly, but when she did, she took to it instantly and soloed after only a couple of hours. In 1912, she became the 4th American woman to earn a pilot's license. Katherine Stinson got her first aircraft in 1913, and by 1915, she was exhibition flying across the United States and famous as the flying schoolgirl. She was 24 years old, but she looked quite a bit younger. She founded the Stinson Aircraft Company with her mother, Emma. Her sister, Marjorie, learned to fly and became a flying instructor, and her brother, Eddie, set to work designing the aircraft. Katherine Stinson became the first woman to perform the loop-the-loop hundreds of times. She was the first pilot to fly at night and became nationally and internationally famous, especially for her night flights with sparking flares attached to the ends of her wings. She also became the first woman to fly in Asia during a 6-month tour of China and Japan. She was invited to Calgary and Edmonton in 1917 and again in 1918 to perform flying demonstrations at the Edmonton Exposition and the Calgary Stampede, wowing audiences alike. She was one of the first people to fly in Edmonton, and the papers loved her. In 1918, she also delivered the first bag of airmail in Western Canada, flying from Calgary to Edmonton along the railroad tracks. Civilian flying in the US and Canada was largely shut down at this time due to the war, but she got a special permit as she was using her flights to raise money for the Red Cross. She also really wanted to help with the war effort. So at the end of the war, she shipped off to Europe and became an ambulance driver, where unfortunately she contracted tuberculosis, but she did also meet her future husband and was almost 5 years in recovery. She never flew as a pilot again, but instead moved to New Mexico and became a distinguished house architect in Santa Fe. Aviation in Alberta was very stagnant in the early 1920s, and many companies were forced to declare bankruptcy. By the end of the decade, things were looking up, and there was a renewed interest in aviation. The federal government sponsored many flying clubs across the province, renting aircraft to them at low cost as long as they had a runway, hangar, licensed pilots, and engineers to operate them. Edmonton's club started in 1927, and right from the get-go accepted women into the club. Unfortunately, prospects for a career in aviation were practically non-existent. As you can see from the quote, the club appealed to young ladies to join, not necessarily so they could become pilots, but so that they could become clerks and secretaries and be familiar with aircraft and aviation terms. A quick segue to talk about another burgeoning career for women in aviation that started in the 30s. Actually, cabin crew had been around for a while with the large dirigibles, but they were entirely staffed by men. The position was the equivalent of a ship's boy, hardening back to the large steamships of the day. Starting in the 1930s, women were hired as air hostesses. Initially, the requirements were very strict, and you needed to be trained as a nurse, not only so you could take care of the passengers in an emergency, but also to provide passengers with a degree of security and comfort, knowing that a nurse was handy in an emergency. Jewel O'Hanlon, here of Edmonton, was one of the first 2 women hired by Grant McConaughey for Yukon Southern Air Transport in the 1930s. That aircraft is now the Barclay Grove that is sitting in our museum on display. By the end of the 1930s, women entirely replaced men as cabin crew, but the job was difficult and very strict, with exacting standards of beauty and grooming enacted by some airlines, and a requirement that all hostesses be single, unmarried, and young. Skipping to another aviation-related career, we have ELSIE MACGILL, who became the first woman in Canada to graduate with a degree in electrical engineering. She was also the first woman in North America to earn an aeronautical engineering degree. She first enrolled at UBC, but was asked to leave after the first year, specifically because they didn't want any women enrolled in their engineering program. She later went to Toronto, Michigan, and MIT. With a master's degree in hand and further training from MIT, she was hired as an assistant engineer at Fairchild Aircraft, then later as the first woman chief aeronautical engineer at Canadian Car and Foundry, responsible for leading the design and testing of the CCF Maple Leaf Trainer 2. Following that success, she moved on to leading CCF's Hawker's Hurricane production as the war exploded in Europe. CCF went from 500 works on their factory floor to 4,500 during full production of the Hurricane, and half of the employees were women. Women played a huge role here at BLATCHFORD during World War II. The war effort here in Edmonton was served in a wide variety of roles, including radio operators, aircraft mechanics, fuelers, clerks, nurses, everything. Never before had so many jobs been available to women that wanted to work. One such woman was Margaret Littlewood. Originally from Ontario, she learned to fly and got work as a flight instructor, but the war shut down civilian flying across the country and Margaret was out of work yet again. The British Commonwealth Air Training Plan employed huge numbers of flight instructors to train the Canadian, Australian, and New Zealander pilots here in Canada to be able to serve in the war effort. Margaret applied to every single one, but none would hire a woman as a pilot. Finally, Wilfred Reed May, also known as Wat May, was the manager of No. 2 Air Observer School here in Edmonton. He wrote her back and offered her a job as a link trainer instructor, which was a very sophisticated flight simulator at the time. Littlewood learned the link on the job and went on to log over 1,200 hours training more than 150 different students by war's end, giving her the nickname Queen of the Link in the press. After the war, she completed her commercial pilot's license, but airlines weren't ready to hire a woman, so she went off to a career at Transport Canada instead. These were two, Violet Milstead and Marion Orr. These were two women of the only 4 Canadian women to serve in the Air Transport Auxiliary, a civilian organization in the UK that employed women pilots to ferry military aircraft from factories to England or between bases. These women needed to familiarize themselves with a wide variety of aircraft, fly them alone, without any aid, in worse weather than the men would have flown them during missions, making them truly accomplished pilots. The US had a similar organization, the Women Air Force Service Pilots, otherwise known as WASPs. After the war, there was a surplus of pilots and a very few jobs. All the gains that women had earned during the war had, with regards to jobs in the workplace, were taken away with a renewed emphasis on marrying and raising children. Pilots like Margaret Littlewood and others struggled to break into the commercial aviation world, a struggle that took a long time to fix, with women slowly being accepted as flight instructors, bush pilots, and charter pilots. That brings us to our final pilot of the talk. This wonderful lady is actually a member of our museum, Rosella Bjornsson. Rosella was born in 1947 and grew up dreaming of being a pilot. Here she is at age 7 in front of her father's aircraft. She took her first lesson at age 17 and got her private pilot's license 2 months later. She built up her hours while studying and established the Girl Guide Air Rangers of Calgary, then became a flight instructor at the Winnipeg Flying Club to further build her hours. Rosella broke through when she was hired by Transair in April of 1973 as a first officer on their Fokker 28 jet, making her the first woman pilot for a commercial airline in North America. In 1990, she became the first Canadian woman to be promoted to the rank of captain while at Canadian Airlines International. She continued flying for Air Canada and Zip before retiring in 2004. Rosella really paved the way for women to serve as commercial jet pilots in Canada, but we are still nowhere near gender parity today. There are way too many women that we could talk about in this presentation, but sadly, I'm out of time. If you've not been to the Alberta Aviation Museum before, please, when we can reopen without restrictions, please come and visit. Check us out when we are open again, and hopefully soon. And of course, check out our website and find us on social media. I'll now put you back to Amy.
Thanks so much, Jean. That was super interesting. And I can't believe how well you pronounced all those names. I'm really glad it wasn't me doing that presentation. Thank you to the audience also for your excellent questions. Just to explain it a little bit, we have been answering some of the questions as they pop up. So if you go to the Answered tab on your Q&A, you should see the answers. Ryan, who's also with the Alberta Aviation Museum, has been putting some really great links and info in there for the audience. So make sure you check that out. So unfortunately, Kaylin is not in Alberta, so we've had to redraw for our STEM Sisters door prize, and the winner is Mel Lee. So Melanie will be in touch with you. And then the second door prize is for Alberta Aviation Museum, sorry, is from the Alberta Aviation Museum, and congrats to Paul for winning that door prize. So Paul, we will also be in touch with you. So next up, we just have a couple polls about women in aviation that kind of tie into Jean's presentation. So Nick, can you bring up those polls for us? Perfect. So you guys hopefully were paying attention. Nick, did you want to share the results? Oh. So the correct answer was 2%. So congrats to everyone who got that one correct. And if anyone has, I think we have one more poll for you guys. And if anyone has any questions for Jean, please just pop them into the Q&A while we're doing these polls, and Jean can answer if anyone has any questions. I think Nick's just bringing up the poll for us again. We're sharing the results of the last poll. Perfect. Most of you got that right as well. Katherine Stinson was the first member of the RCAF Women's Division. So great job, everybody. I'm not seeing any questions. Jean, there was one question about Sophie that Ryan had answered about documentaries or other resources. I'm not sure if you had anything else that you wanted to add to that answer.
No, actually, that was new information for me as well. That's great. I definitely would be eager to see that. So
there's definitely, like I said, so Ryan linked some cool, looks like a documentary, as well as the recent movie, The Aeronauts, which incorporates a lot of Sophie Blanchard's character in the character of Amelia Wren.
that's wonderful.
So thank you. Oh, there's one open question. Oh, Jean, it's just, I'll maybe let you answer that one. But we won't answer it live. It's just a question about the museum itself. So thank you so much, everyone. It seems like most of you were paying attention, which is great. So next up is our professional aviation panel discussion about the current state of women in aviation and what the future might hold. We're really excited. We've gathered an impressive panel of women in the aviation industry to talk to us about their journeys and the barriers they've faced. There will be, again, an opportunity for questions for the panelists. So please make sure you pop your questions into the Q&A chat at the bottom of your screen, and make sure you vote for a question if you maybe didn't come up with it, but you really want to know the answer. So I'm going to throw it to Kendra and Sarah, your panel moderators.
Hello, hi Sarah.
Hey, Cassandra. I think while Nick's just bringing in the panelists, we can maybe just introduce ourselves.
Go for it. You start.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah. I'm the other co-founder of STEM Sisters. I'm a professional engineer, and I'm just here because I'm really curious to learn about women in aviation.
Right on, thanks. As I said earlier, my name is Kendra Kincaid. I'm the founder of Elevate Aviation, and it's only possible because of the amazing volunteers that we have at Elevate Aviation, including the panel that they're just coming on here right now. There's a few of them. I'm so happy you're here. Please ask them questions, really hard questions if you can, because I love this panel and I love putting them on the spot. So any questions are good questions throughout the whole thing. Hey, ladies.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Meg, Melissa. Just waiting for Sophia and Cassandra. So I'll tell you guys right at the beginning, I am going to introduce these women. I'm not going to go through their whole bios or it will take the entire hour. So I'm just going to give you a very short introduction to these women, but I want to say, pay attention to the introduction of the bios because there's a reason for it. So pay attention when I introduce them. It's gonna be really short. And then get your typing fingers ready and get ready to type something in the chat, okay? So we're just, we're waiting for Sophia's video. Sophia, you having trouble getting your video on?
There we go. I
Okay.
just was locked out. I'm good now.
Okay. And Nick, Cassandra has not been invited in yet. And although sometimes we try to leave her out of things, this is not one of them. I'm just kidding. We don't leave her out of things. So, okay, we'll just wait for Nick to bring on Cassandra. Sophia, you're part of the Alberta Aviation Board. Let's just talk about Jean for a minute while we're waiting for Cassandra. Wasn't that great?
She's such a rock star and such an amazing asset to the museum. We're so lucky to have her. She's an absolutely incredible mentor and an inspiration, I think, to the entire community of Edmonton and aviation.
Yeah, and you are too, and they're lucky to have you on the board. And Jean, yeah, rock show. That was amazing what you did there, that presentation. Still waiting for Cassandra. And we want Cassandra to start.
Nick just said in the chat that he couldn't find her. Does she have the right link? Is she in the
Cassandra,
waiting room?
what's your name on Zoom? Just to make sure he can find you. Actually,
She says she's in there. She says she's watching the event.
Cassandra, what's your name? Or Cassandra, what's your name? Or what's it show up as? If you look at the attendees, I actually don't see Cassandra's name in there, so she must be.
Is she Elevate Aviation by any chance?
Oh, she might
Nick,
be.
Can you bring in that Elevate Aviation? Good call.
Unless that's Laura.
No, Laura, I see Laura's on a different name.
Yep, there she
There
is.
she is. There she is. Hello, Cassandra. Nick, if you don't mind renaming Cassandra, and while you're at it, if possible, name Sophia, because this matters.
Awesome.
This matters. Okay. Sarah, do you have anything else before we dive in?
No, I'm just super excited to get going.
Okay, well, if you're watching, I hope you're ready. Like I said, pay attention. I'm going to introduce the panel, and there's a reason I want you to pay attention. Here we go. So first up, we have the lady I was just talking to, a wonderful woman. Her name is Sophia Wells. Sophia Wells is the chief flight instructor at the Edmonton Flying Club, and she also flies a private airplane. We also have Meg Gaze. Meg, give a wave. Meg Gaze is a flight service specialist in Fort Nelson. And we have Cassandra Hepp, who joined us. Thank you for joining us, Cassandra. Thank you for being here. She is an AME, aircraft maintenance engineer, with Canadian North in Yellowknife. And we have Melissa Haney, who, hi Melissa, is a pilot for Air Inuit out in Quebec. So to get us started, I know these women really well and they know each other. We have a pro panel here, except for Meghan. I just want to say thank you, Meghan. This is Meghan's first time on a panel. So thank you for doing this, Meghan. And what I want to know to start us off is how well does our panel know each other? How well do they know each other's jobs? So they should know each other. We should get 0 wrong in these questions that I'm going to ask them. But when I ask these questions, I want you as an attendee to mark in the chat as quickly as you can the name of the person that you think is the right answer to my question. Okay, I'm going to do about 10 questions. We're going to start with a really easy one. Okay, and we'll do a little practice on the easy one. And are you guys ready? My lovely panel, you know how to answer? Everyone knows how to answer?
We're ready.
Okay. Who, get ready people watching to type in the name. Who tells the aircraft about traffic in the vicinity? Who said Meghan so fast? Meg, yes. Yeah. Good job to the attendees. Wow, there was one up there before I even finished answering the question or asking the question, I think. Okay, good job. You all get 10 points. There's nothing for okay, who could list plumber to their resume? Cass. These, okay, the people watching know what you guys do. This is wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna try to get some harder ones, hopefully. Who can speak French on the radio? Oh, okay, our panels are all right. Yeah, okay, Melissa, why can you speak French and are you the only person in the world? Not person, but place.
Bonjour. Well, Kendra, you can speak French too, but well, that's another day. But in Quebec, yeah, we can. We're able to speak French on the radio.
Are you the only place in the world that can do that? I get conflicting answers, so I don't know.
I know in Ottawa you can, and I don't know about France, but I'm not
very rare. Okay, here comes another question. Don't take it personal, please. Who has to watch their weight? All right. Sophia, do you want to explain that one?
I had to think about it myself, like, oh, she's talking about me. I guess because in smaller aircraft, of course, you can easily overweight the aircraft more so than, well, not more so than a big one, but it happens faster, as well as just with, I carry crews around in the private aircraft I fly, so they bring lots of PPE and things like that, so I have to pay attention to the weight in the aircraft and the fuel weight, all that good stuff.
That was a good one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good. Well done.
Okay, who has to ensure no animals are on the runway?
You could really do like all of these. I think
that's fair enough, actually.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Let's see, let me see, just a couple left. Okay, you guys, I don't know if you guys will get this one. Get ready, everyone watching. Who might be referred to as lame? Anyone watching? Yes. No,
I like
but there is an answer that's correct on there.
lead AME. Oh,
License.
licensed AME. I was
Oh,
like,
wow,
really?
I didn't even know.
Otherwise known as lame.
That was a good one, Kendra.
I was like, wait a minute,
Okay.
what's the
I
acronym?
don't think I'm lame.
You are most certainly not lame. Okay, and then I want to ask, who is responsible for the safety of the aircraft?
Everyone.
Yeah, all of them? They're all, look at that. Everyone, yeah, we got everyone. That's awesome. Great on. Okay, thanks for playing along, you guys. That was awesome. Oh, how much fun. Okay, well, you all get 100 points each. They're renewable at my house for food. There you go. Okay, let's dive in. You know what? We're going to start with Melissa. Melissa, let's talk about your job first, and then after you tell us really a little bit more about what you do, we'll go into, after we do a roundtable of that, we'll talk about the journey and how you got there. But first of all, tell us about your job and what you do there.
So hi everybody. I'm a pilot with Aero, and my current job is I'm the assistant chief pilot for the Dash 8s at Aero, and I'm also captain on the Dash 8. So that's my main title. I also do different things with Aero. I'm also coordinator for our Sparrow program. But I'll talk a little bit about my first job of piloting. So I do fly the Dash 8, and we operate out of Montreal, and we fly up to northern Quebec, so all of Nunavik. And with my assistant job, I make sure that all our pilots are up to date with all their training, making sure that their simulators are going well, and just making sure the day-to-day is kind of running smoothly. If weather's bad somewhere or runway conditions aren't good, they might give us a call and get a derogation to land somewhere, but that's kind of my day-to-day job.
Melissa, I have a question. Can I jump in? What's a Dash 8? How is that the same as like most commercial airplanes? I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, so I'll share my screen here if I'm able to.
I just messaged Nick. I don't see that we can't really do it yet. Oh, you did. Okay.
Okay. So I'll just get a picture up here. So this is a Dash 8. This is, if you look really closely, you can see my head kind of popping out there. So that's a friend of mine took my picture when I was landing one day in Quebec City. So that's the Dash 8. Our Dash 8s are configured a little bit differently from other Dash 8s that operate through Canada because we operate in northern Quebec, where there are no roads. So we actually reconfigured our cabin to have a little bit less seating, but then we're able to take a little bit more cargo. So we have 45 passengers on board, and we operate on pretty small gravel runways. So the runways that we land on are the smallest ones are 3,500 feet. So it's quite small for the airplane that we operate. And this is our routes go through all of northern Quebec, and we operate in 14 Inuit communities in Nunavik. So those are our runs. We have our first run going from about 2.5 hours. And after that, we're kind of doing some what we call the milk runs up all around northern Quebec. And they're about 30-minute flights. So a lot of up and down.
Thanks,
Well,
Melissa.
thanks for sharing.
So Melissa, you are such an essential service where you go, right? Like it's.
Yes, so we, like I said before, there are no roads that operate. If we look at the map here, in La Grande is where the road stops. After that, each community is fly-in only. In the summertime, there are boats that go up, but other than that, it's all in and out with our plane. Kind of the same thing as, well, our sister company is Canadian North, so Cassandra kind of knows that too. Where Canadian North operates in Nunavut, we're more in Nunavik. And so this is very an essential service on a daily basis. There's planes going in, weather permitting, to each community.
Right on. Thanks, Melissa. I will let you stop sharing your screen for a second.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, we are going to move to Cassandra next. Cassandra, you are an AME, not an LAME. You are a LAME, but tell us what that is. Tell us about your job.
Yeah, so I'm an aircraft maintenance engineer, and I've got my M1 and M2 licenses. So in simple terms, that's kind of like small aircraft and large aircraft. So I've worked at a few different companies in my career. Right now I am at Canadian North, so I work on the 737, and it's such a cool airplane to work on. But I've worked on small aircraft, like I have worked on the Twin Otter, Dornier, Jetstream. Those are the M1 aircraft. But yeah, right now I'm on the 737. So AMEs, we pretty much do everything. You know, one day I could be replacing landing gear. The next day we could be lubricating flight controls. We chat with the pilots. One important part of my job is having a good relationship with the pilots. So once the airplane lands, so when Melissa would land, then we would try to get to the airplane so we could talk to her and ask her if the airplane had any issues that day. And if there was, then she would write it up in the aircraft maintenance logbook, and we would have to rectify it before it flew again. So I like my job because it is very different. And right now at Canadian North, I'm on night shift. So I work 14 days on, 14 days off of 12-hour night shifts. So tonight I'm actually going to work at 4:30 p.m. and I'll be getting home around 4 a.m. So every night is different. And that's what I really like about my job.
Cassandra, what is the percentage of women that are AMEs?
It's 2%. So yeah, there's not a lot of us out there. So when I meet a female AME, it's like an instant friend, which is very nice.
What do we call them?
Unicorn.
That's right. They're so rare. That's what we call them. One day in our life, we got to introduce two of them to each other, and it was so much fun to see them bond so quickly. It was great. Thanks, Cassandra. We'll learn about more. Cassandra, one of the advantages of working up in Yellowknife is that you get to see a beautiful, beautiful sky, right?
Yeah, I'll share my screen with you guys right now. Last night, I think it was like 2 a.m. It was -30, but the northern lights were beautiful. Oh, there's me. So this was last night.
Wow.
And yeah, I stood outside with one of my coworkers for 5 minutes, freezing our hands, taking so many pictures. But I mean, that's one of my favorite parts about the job is getting to see the northern lights. Living in Yellowknife, you know, it is very cold. People ask me why I live here, but this makes it worth it. It's awesome.
All they have to do is follow you on Instagram and they'll see why you live there.
I post a lot of pictures of the northern lights. Okay, how do I stop sharing?
Just go hit the stop share button.
Oh, there it is. Okay,
there we go. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Sophia. Well,
Yes.
tell us about you. So you're a pilot as well, like Melissa, but a little bit different.
Yep. So a lot of people don't realize that there's so many flying jobs, and Melissa and I are always trying to tell this to other people that, you know, whichever way you want to go, we're not all going to work for, you know, Air Canada or WestJet or, you know, one of the main carriers. And so I'm a flight instructor. So I'm the chief flight instructor, which means I manage a team of instructors basically. And so we can teach you from when you first walk in the door as young as 14. So craziness, you can get your student pilot permit at 14 years old and actually be able to fly an airplane by yourself before you could drive a car by yourself. That being said, it's not like just, hey, here's the keys. You know, there's lots of training and such that goes into that. But we'll train them all the way from nothing to private, commercial, multi-engine ratings, instrument ratings, potentially instructor ratings. And then, of course, help pair them up and find jobs and such into their first foot into the industry. And then my other job, I fly for a construction company who owns a couple of their own airplanes. So I manage our aircraft and fly where the crews or mostly it's the HR executives need to go.
Hey, Sophia, would you say that a lot of people fall in love with flying when they actually go for a flight? Like you have something out there, don't you, that someone could maybe go for an hour?
Yeah, so discovery flights are also always an option for any flight school. Edmonton Flying Club, and most of the schools right now are actually restricted on them just because of COVID. But hopefully with the restrictions easing, that'll become a little easier. But yeah, you can actually book a discounted flight for, you know, it's about a half an hour. So you get to go up with an instructor and we hand over the controls and you actually get to, you know, like pull, push, roll, figure it all out, see what it feels like, as well as it's just a great view from above. I don't know if I can try sharing. I've got tons of pictures pictures. If you want me to share a couple, I can, or we can keep going.
Share a couple of while you're doing that. Cassandra's asking if you can go to ground school. Can she go to ground school before 14?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's actually like better. And like you can start, not better, but you can start ground school whenever you like. Shouldn't say better, but okay. Screen broadcast, I think. So I've never done this on
your iPad.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see stuff?
No, we cannot. Oh, yeah.
Now you can?
Yes.
Nope. Okay. You're sharing my screen. There we go.
There we go.
Can you still see?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, like the views like this, I always love this little video here. Like that is one of my favorite views, is just like being on top of the clouds like that. I fly like this plane that I fly, it's and we don't go very high in it, so I'm often in the weather, which sometimes is bad, but is often really great. This is Radwan. He just passed.
Go dip down and come up, Sophia, you know, like
yeah, just play in there. This is what I love, is seeing guys like this is Radwan. He just passed his commercial pilot license and was so excited. So like that kind of stuff is awesome. Just yeah, the views are great. I was kind of in and out of the clouds this day. So I was just kind of like in and then kind of coming back out, and then the sunset was setting. It was just
so pretty.
So yeah, I have a pretty awesome view most of the time. How do I get out of this?
That's very pretty.
Stop share. Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
Thanks for sharing this.
Of course.
Okay. Well, let's move on to Meg. Meg, a flight service specialist. I just want the people who are watching, if you have heard of a flight service specialist before, if you know what that is, type a little yes down there, because we don't run into people often that know what air traffic controllers or flight service specialists is. So it's always fun when we do. So Meg, what is flight service specialist?
Yeah, so it's definitely a career that I hadn't even heard of before I got into the industry. So I'm going to break it down for you guys. So I work in Fort Nelson at the tower at the airport here. And I basically oversee an area within a 5-mile radius of the airport. FSS, flight service specialists, we typically work at smaller airports where it's not quite busy enough to warrant having air traffic controllers who give explicit instructions to pilots and completely coordinate all aircraft movements. So flight service specialists, we don't control aircraft. Instead, we get the position and the intentions from the pilots. And in turn, we provide them with the essential information necessary for them to make safe decisions. We provide them information such as wind speed and direction, runway conditions, hazards to flight safety, such as wildlife on the runway, and the position and intentions of other aircraft so they can establish and maintain visual contact with other conflicting traffic. If it appears that the pilot doesn't understand the traffic picture or they're about to make an unsafe decision, we can provide them with alternative solutions to ensure that there is a safe and efficient flow of traffic.
Land. Go back to Sophia.
Please don't hit anyone.
I'll give you Sophia's number.
Yeah. So we don't control aircraft, but we do actually control the vehicles operating at the airport. So we ensure that pilots can arrive and depart safely in conjunction with the vehicles that need to perform tasks such as runway inspections, clearing snow off the runway, or even chasing off the herd of elk on the runway that I just warned the pilot about 5 minutes ago, which happens very often in Fort Nelson. I'm constantly on wildlife watch. It is everywhere, and it's actually really interesting as well. So definitely a fun aspect of my job.
What do you do with that? How do you get rid of them?
We basically call out the airport operations and we say, hey, we've got a bear or a deer or whatever it is on the runway. Can you please scare them off? So then we need to then coordinate with the pilots and the vehicles that are now going to be going out onto the runways. And we let the pilots know, like, hey, we've got something out there. We'll let you know once it's taken care of, kind of thing. So.
Well, that's better than I pictured you running down the runway like this. Get off the runway.
Meg chasing the bear.
It can actually be quite entertaining. I've seen herds of up to 30 elk just slowly sauntering across the runway, and I've got a pilot, coming in a few minutes and get out of the way, get out of the way. So it was definitely taken care of quite promptly. So never had any issues as of yet. So it's pretty good. But Another major component of my job is to also maintain a constant weather watch so that I can provide pilots with timely and accurate weather conditions. Weather is extremely important for pilots, especially VFR pilots who basically rely on visual information at all times, kind of thing. So I determine things such as cloud heights, visibilities, and the presence of any dangerous weather, such as thunderstorms or freezing rain, stuff like that. And I relay all the information to the pilots to help them make safe decisions as well. So basically, as an FSS, I'm there to monitor all the activity that's taking place within my zone and just to ensure that everything is operating safely and smoothly. And I, basically paint the picture of the current traffic and conditions and provide assistance to pilots whenever necessary.
Meghan, Cassandra's asking how many women would be in the FSS position?
So I don't know the exact statistic of how many women we have in flight service specialists, but as an example, in my course that I started out with for training, I was in a class of 4 people. I was the only woman. And I now currently work at a site with 7 individuals, and I am also the only woman there. So it's men everywhere. So there's definitely very few of us for sure.
The stat overall of air traffic services is 17% pre-COVID. Who knows if that's going to change after COVID, but Meghan, FSS is linked in the air traffic service family. What are the other 2 areas that are in the air traffic service family?
Yeah, so there are controllers, there are IFR controllers, and there are VFR controllers. So VFR controllers, they work in towers similar to myself. So they work at busier airports. They deal with kind of the same area as well. And like I said earlier, they get to control the aircraft. So they make sure that everything is coordinated really smoothly with the aircraft coming in and out of the zone, landing and departing. And there are also IFR controllers. They typically deal with aircraft that are going en route, kind of from airport to airport and stuff like that. IFR controllers deal with instrument flight rule aircraft, which means they can fly in much worse conditions. They don't have to have, their minimums are a lot lower, basically. Yeah. And VFR controllers for visual flight rule pilots, that's, they have to have a certain minimum that they can see. They always have to have, established contact with the ground and stuff like that. They can't fly in clouds. So it's just very different rules and ways of controlling those aircraft. Myself, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say myself personally at my airport, I do deal with some IFR, but I deal with mostly VFR traffic. So lots of kind of small local guys that are flying around, little charter companies and stuff like that. So, but yeah, basically controllers get to control aircraft and flight service specialists get to offer advice.
And I know you didn't bring a picture, so I brought a little video to share. So when Meg's talking about the different sort of controllers, I am an IFR air traffic controller. And so I just brought this little video to show you so IFR controllers, where Meg is sitting in a tower, we sit, this doesn't look very pretty, the color back here, but we sit in a place like this and look at these screens and talk to the aircraft. And this is basically what you see. So this is Edmonton terminal. So if you're from Alberta and you're flying into the Edmonton airport, I'll tell you, this was before COVID. It's a little different now. But this is basically what we see for the aircraft, and they're flying around here and they're all being lined up to the runway, which is these 2 little lines right here, the runways at the airport. So for example, this is MPE, which is Empress, which is the aircraft that Cassandra works on. Yeah.
Yay.
That aircraft is enough to fly in the airspace. The pilots will fly them, and then they'll come and they'll talk to someone like Meghan and me. And so that is how you can clearly see that we're all linked together. Like they don't work without us working together, right? Whether it's fixing the aircraft, flying the aircraft, keeping them safe in the sky, whatever it is, it's a big family and it's an amazing family. So I did want to share my screen one more time because Melissa, so I just want to find out how you guys got to where you are, because a lot of women in aviation, usually they know someone, and that's about it. The percentage isn't great. This is you. Not a very big picture of it here, but can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look, I can make it bigger, Melissa.
Oh.
Look at that.
Just want to see my face.
Yeah, Melissa is, someone marked in the comments that Melissa is a bit of a celebrity in Quebec, and she is more than Quebec, I can tell you that. Melissa, tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you get into flying? Like, what brought you here? Because there's a lot of women that don't think of aviation as careers, and we want them to.
For sure. So I'm the part who didn't know that this existed before. I'm going to go back and share my screen. Share. Okay, I think it's sharing now. All right.
Yep.
So like I said before, here's the map of Quebec, and I have a little arrow there pointing to where I'm actually from. So my town is called Inukjuak, and we're on the eastern side of the Hudson Bay. It's about 3/4 of the way up in Quebec. Now from Montreal, if you fly directly to Inukjuak, it's about a 3.5-hour flight. I know somebody in the chat had asked earlier what the longest flight was that I had done or that we do. And I didn't know how to respond, so I'll just tell you right now. So our first flight is about 2.5 hours, and after that, we're doing half-hour kind of little hops. And if I flew in a direct line, it's about 5 hours that we can do. So my town here is Inukjuak. I was raised in different communities throughout Nunavut. My mom was a teacher there, so we went around to different communities. And to get anywhere, if you want to come to Montreal for either shopping or see the dentist or the doctor, you had to take the plane. So we always took the plane. It was very natural, but I never thought it was something that I can do. I never seen a woman pilot before, so I just didn't know that was even an option for myself. So I went to CEGEP and I went to university here in Montreal, and I just remember sitting in a class of like, maybe I'm exaggerating, with 300 people, but there were a lot of people in the class, and I just said, no, this isn't for me. So one of my friends actually was saying that Aero Inuit is looking for some flight attendants. So I called up Aero Inuit, and I started my first job as a flight attendant on the Dash 8. So that's me with Aero Inuit, and I was 19 years old, and it was my first job. And one of my first days, like solos, we do about a 3-week training period on the ground, and then we have in-flight training with an instructor, and then after that you're set free, you're loose, you're all alone on the plane. So I was 19 years old. I had a cabin of either 29 or 37 people to look after, and my first day solo was actually September 11th, 2001. And that day, as much as it was horrible for everybody, throughout the world, and it just made me realize that I really wanted to be in this industry. So I inquired, and we do have a really great program up in Nunavut where we're actually get our pilot license paid for. And once we do that, we get a job with Aero Inuit. And the reason behind this is that Aero Inuit wants to have the people of Nunavut work for their company, because Aero Inuit is owned by the Inuit of Nunavut. So this is one of their mission statements, and it's something that they're really, really proud of, and something that's really, really, that works. We have about 12% of our pilots are actually Inuit of Nunavut, which is quite high. And there's Inuit on all types of planes that we have. So we're really proud of that. So I started as a flight attendant. I worked my way up and got my license, and the Twin Otter was one of the first planes that I flew. So we can see the Twin Otter here. I think this is one of my first days on the Twin Otter. I think I was still in line and duck and training, and we went to an off-strip ice runway in the middle of the tundra. So that kind of really got me interested, and I made my way up onto the Dash 8. So
Nice.
that's me and the Dash 8, and we do have adventures throughout our day where we never know what can happen as we're flying. So unfortunately, this picture on the lower left, we had a little incident with our windshield. Always good, but it makes for exciting days.
Just pull that down and sticking in your hand out to say hi.
And say hi. You have to do that. So
Okay.
that's kind of my start in aviation, how I got
Thanks,
there.
Melissa. Thanks, Melissa. And you know what? Aero Inuit is doing a great job at recognizing some of those barriers that you have in the northern communities, right? And doing something about them. And we're just gonna have a quick talk with the rest of them about how they got in, and then we're gonna actually talk about our SWAP project and what we did recognizing what the barriers are. Why, can you give us a quick little how you got into it?
Sure. Yeah. I similar to Melissa, I had no idea anything like that was even an option, but I did learn about flying.
Story, right?
Yeah. Yep. I did learn about it a little bit, like young. So I am from the Crowsnest Pass in southern Alberta, small town, and had wanted to be, a veterinarian, a photographer, a chef. Like as a kid, you go through all those different thoughts and whatnot. And I kind of had a bit of a time in my life where things got a little rough. I went from being a skinny little thing to all of a sudden I ballooned and was like 200 pounds and less than 5 feet tall between grade 5 and grade 6. And I started getting picked on a lot, and I really started I got really quiet and didn't like to talk and just kind of hid. Got bullied quite a bit in school. And then kind of out of randomness, the small town that I'm from, there was a guy and his wife that bought a little summer home. And he always just said he worked for the government, but eventually we figured out that he was an F-18 fighter pilot with the Canadian Forces. And he said, Sophia, you should join the Air Cadet program. I think it'd be really good for you. And I was like, I get picked on enough. I don't want to do this. He said, no, like it's a really great program. Check it out. And so I joined. And I'll tell you the first, couple months, I hated it because I had to learn how to iron and put my hair up and polish boots. And I just remember saying to my mom, my hair was down past my bum at the time. And I just said I'm not good enough at this. I can't do it. And she said, hey, you signed up for this, give it an honest shot. And if after a full year, you don't like it, then fine, but you have to give it a real try. And that's one of the biggest lessons my parents ever taught me, was to really give it a try. So sure enough, after a little while, I started making friends, and I'm loud. So I was good at drill commands. And so any cadet that's out there is like, oh yes, drill. And so I found my little community a bit. And at the end of the first year, that same fighter pilot brought the F-18 down to Lethbridge, which was the closest jet to us. And it's a super cheesy story, but I literally he took off and rocked his wings going over top of us. And I just was like, pew, yep, gotta be a pilot. So yeah. And from there, it wasn't an easy journey. I mean, I wanted to go military. That was all I was going to do. And then I got to I was supposed to go for an interview is what I thought I was going for, but it was actually an aptitude test, and I had severe test anxiety. I had no idea what an aptitude test was. And so I finished the test after being like, oh my God, how do you put this square box into a round hole? Yeah. And they said, I'm sorry, you don't have the aptitude to be in the Canadian Forces. No. And I just
our win.
broke, right? But I didn't, for whatever reason, I kept hearing my parents were still like, well, how do you want to get there instead? And so again, I had that strong support from family, and I just tried doing other things and eventually stumbled upon civilian aviation, and away we go. Right. So I did get to fly in F-18 once though, and it was amazing. So I'll go with that. But yeah, then you find all kinds of airplanes, and flying different stuff is just so cool.
What better way to combat bullying than to become a pilot?
Yeah, I don't get bullied anymore by most of them actually ask me, the ones that bullied me in high school. They're like, oh, when are you going to take me flying? And I'm just like,
Cassandra, really quickly, because I want to get through a whole bunch of stuff here. You're an aircraft maintenance engineer. There's 1% to 2%. What got you into that?
I also didn't even know that aircraft maintenance existed when I was 18. After I graduated from high school, I moved to Calgary to take a Bachelor of Science at Mount Royal University. And it was in my first year, I didn't know what I would do with a Bachelor of Science. I just went because I thought that's what you're supposed to do when you graduate high school. But I met somebody during my first year at Mount Royal who was in aircraft maintenance at SAIT. And honestly, after I met him and I started looking into the career, because I'd always loved airplanes, I looked into it, and my uncle is a captain at WestJet, so he hooked me up with a tour hangar. And honestly, the rest is history. I just applied to SAIT and started and graduated from SAIT in 2016, and I've been working in the industry since.
See,
Yeah.
Meg, real quick for you too.
So I've always had a huge interest and passion in aviation. As a kid, I wanted to get my pilot's license and, totally go down that road. Unfortunately, my life situation didn't lend to, being able to pursue my pilot's license at that time. And so I just kind of floated through life through my 20s and didn't really know what to do with myself. And I actually came across NAV Canada at a career fair and learned about air traffic control. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. And I just happened to know Kendra already, and she took me into the center in Edmonton to show me what air traffic control was all about. And I fell in love. I thought, this is the job for me. So I went home and opened up my computer and was all ready to apply, and stopped dead in my tracks because I was already intimidated by the application process with NAV Canada and didn't apply. It took me 8 years before I got the courage to actually apply to NAV Canada. It wasn't until I was working with Elevate and these wonderful women, really encouraged and pushed me. Yeah, pushed me into applying to NAV Can. And I did it just to say that I at least tried and to see what would happen. And I actually got accepted into the air traffic control training program. I was in the program for about a year. When I was cut from the program, I was not successful. There was a point in my life where I, was shattered by that. And I said, unfortunately, I got cut. That is no longer the case. About 3 weeks later, I was invited back by NAV Canada to start flight service specialist training. And I couldn't be more happy with the outcome. I love my job. I think it's the perfect path for me. It's a great fit. And while it's not the original dream that I had, it is amazing. It's a brand new dream for me, and it's a dream come true. I love it.
So when we talk about barriers that women face coming into aviation, you all know, the panel knows here, that we did a project. It's a 3-year project, it's not quite over yet, where we looked at the reasons why women aren't looking at aviation as a career for economic security. And the number one thing we found out, and this is the reason I wanted you guys to share your stories, is because so many women, we found out, don't come into aviation because they don't know about it. Teachers don't know about it. Guidance counselors don't know about it. We even hear stories recently of guidance counselors who try to encourage women not to get into it. And, we don't like hearing those stories. And I'm sure that's not a blanket statement for guidance counselors at all. But we also had a pilot who came to us last International Women's Day and said she just left a Girl Guides session. And the Girl Guides looked at her and said, "You mean girls can be pilots too?" And that's still happening today. You guys, what are the barriers besides the awareness, or if you think that's it, what are the barriers for people coming, learning about aviation? What are the barriers once you get in aviation to climb the ladder or to stay in the field? Because there's also, people who come into aviation and the environment maybe isn't quite the way they want it and they leave. Who has thoughts on that? Let's go first. That's a loaded question.
I'll go first. So for people coming into the industry, I do think it's lack of awareness. I mean, for me, and it sounds like everyone else on the panel, we just didn't really know that we could do these careers or that they even existed. As for once you're in the industry, like for me, one barrier that I face is being small. And aircraft maintenance it's pretty demanding. So we do a lot of heavy lifting and stuff. And I always need to ask for help when it comes to lifting, the batteries are almost 90 pounds. The starter generators are heavy. Something that a man can lift by himself, I need help. So for me personally, it's, I'm small, so I need help. As well as then just, the stereotype of what a mechanic should look like. I am not it at all. So, people thinking that mechanics should be men, that stereotype is out there. So I think that's a barrier that I've been facing throughout my entire career so far is, some people just don't think that women should be in these roles. But, it's not everyone. I've worked with a lot of amazing people. And even I was the host for the aircraft maintenance day for our cross country tour on Wednesday. And I was at work telling one of my coworkers about it, and he's been in the industry for 20 or 30 years, this guy, and he started telling me of the women that he's worked with in his career in aircraft maintenance, and he said, no one's ever been as pretty as you. And it was very nice to hear, but he was just kind of saying, I'm not the typical female mechanic or mechanic that you would think of. So that's something that I've, been dealing with throughout the entire career, and people saying to have thicker skin, or maybe, I've heard that I need to think differently because I'm working with all men. So those are the barriers that I personally face in aircraft maintenance. I'm sure, pilots and the flight service specialists have their own barriers, but for me, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Cassandra, I just want to say, you're what, about 5'4"?
I'm 5'6", actually.
You're taller than me. Okay, but so I'm going to ask you this question because I want you to answer it. So if you need help moving things around as an aircraft maintenance engineer and people think it's a guy's job, why should women get into it? And what do women bring to it?
Well, women bring a whole different set of skills that men don't have. Like, we are naturally more nurturing or detail oriented. Women and men both have, we have our pros and cons. Like, we have a certain set of skills that we just naturally excel at. And so do men. Like, whenever I need help lifting stuff, I have no problem asking for help. And sometimes, depending on who I ask, sometimes they're nice and they'll help me, or sometimes they'll say, well, you should be able to lift this yourself. But then when they need help, my hands are very small. So they can fit into the tight places in the engine or anywhere in the fuselage where their big hands can't get at. So it really just is working together as a team and playing off everyone's skills. Not everyone's going to be great at everything. So it's nice to work with a group of people that can just play off of each other's.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted you to answer that. So for our pilots, someone's asking so just keeping in mind the barriers. If you become a commercial pilot, how will you look after your husband and kids? I have my PPL and have started training towards my CPL, but it's something I think about as I progress, even if I try not to. Is having a family one of the barriers? And anything else you have to say on barriers, please do.
I can answer for that one. So having a family is not a barrier to becoming a commercial pilot. There are women who are flight attendants and we have the same schedule as them, and they have family and they have kids and they have everything. So I do have a family. I have 2 young kids, and this is something that I never thought of as a barrier, because it was always my life. My life has always been a little bit different. My schedule's always been a little bit different. And I look at my friends who work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and I look at them and I say, oh my gosh, I don't know how they do it. Like, I could be off on a Tuesday and I get all my groceries done without anybody at the grocery store. So I think you have to pick and choose kind of what you see as a schedule that you want. And the other thing is that you have to build your tribe. So build your base of people who can be around you, who can help you out, who are willing to. And before you get into that career, make sure that you do have that base. So if it's family or friends or whoever you're able to kind of turn to, make sure that you have that before you get into the industry.
And just to add to that really, really quickly, is that there's also, like, not all of the flying jobs are like airline pilots. Like, I'm home every night. Like, I'm flying all over Alberta and I'm home every night. And the odd, like, once a month, maybe I get to spend a night in a hotel room without the husband or the dog or anybody. And it's glorious. So, it's how you find the way you make it. You make it to fit your life.
Absolutely. Good points, Sophia. There's so many jobs and you talk about them all the time. It's not just a commercial pilot. So Meg, anything from you as far as like barriers that people face to get into, whether it's air traffic services or anything in the industry? Like, why aren't they coming? What's the barrier when they're in?
Well, definitely, again, the awareness around it. I mean, I kind of knew what an air traffic controller was, but not really. Never heard of a flight service specialist. what is that? So definitely a lack of awareness about these careers. And also, I think kind of the biggest barrier for myself was the lack of confidence that I had and the intimidation getting into the industry. I mean, I can remember, like I said before, it took me years before I applied to NAV Canada because I didn't think I could do it. I wouldn't fit in. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't capable. There's no way that they would choose me for training. And, finally got the push, finally took the leap. And I'll remember the entire application process, I was surrounded by men. It was a huge class. We had to do all these aptitude tests and interviews and all kinds of things. I was the only female the entire time. And I always thought, they're not going to choose me. Like, of course they're going to choose these guys because why wouldn't they?
That's why a mentor comes in handy, eh? Mentorship.
Exactly, right?
I want to talk about mentorship, but we're going to run out of time. But Sarah has a quick question.
For sure.
So like I said, I'm in engineering and that's like a male dominated field. And like everything you were saying is just resonating so much with me that like the lack of representation, the lack of even knowing it was an option of getting in there. And then like you see another woman and you just latch on and create this sisterhood. And I just was hoping to just hear like quickly like your perspective on this sisterhood and how important, and actually was about mentorship, how important like mentorship and sisterhood is and how we can like continue to foster that sort of community, and like maybe like the aviation community, like the STEM community can like form like a super sisterhood.
I'd like to start with that actually. I think the mentorship is huge. It is definitely what was the catalyst for me changing my entire life. I've been volunteering with Elevate for several years, but I definitely was on the receiving end of the mentorship with Elevate as well. Sophia was a huge part of my life, Kendra, Laura, all these people were really fundamental in mentoring me and showing me that I can be a part of this industry and I can contribute and I can be successful. And if I did not have this, aviation family supporting me and pushing me to be better and to try new things, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be in a job that I love. I wouldn't have the confidence that I have now. My life would be completely different and not in a good way, So mentorship and finding those people to help you and support you is fundamental. It's amazing, it's very important for sure.
Sophia,
You get me to cry. I'm close. Yeah, like seriously, Megs. Oh, she comes out swinging on her first panel appearance.
But Sophia, you run our mentorship program, and so you see many things. Cassandra and Melissa are all part of it. Go for it.
It's incredible. Like that, just Meg's a perfect example of just if you have people in your corner, right? And Melissa has experienced this too. I'm sure she's doing the same thing as me because it's, we joke our baby birds out of the nest. And it's just, it's incredible seeing when you support each other, and it's saying lift, each other up, women lifting other women up. It's so important and it's so empowering. And like, that's the thing I love the most about the mentorship program is it doesn't have to be, the most structured. It's like this, and this. It's about having someone in your corner, and that email that you can send, or that text, or that quick call when you're like, I'm scared, or I just partialed my flight test, or this just went wrong, or I just flew in icing for the first time and it was terrifying. Whoa, let's talk about it. Or, like something happened on the floor. A guy said this to me. How do I handle this on at the maintenance shop or in the tower, wherever? It's just having somebody to talk to about it. And sometimes it's events, sometimes it's an excitement. It's just about having somebody there. And I think women in general, especially in industries that are male dominated, that sisterhood is such a cool, powerful thing. And in one way, it almost makes me like, not happy that it's like less women, but it's kind of neat in a sense that we're at this forefront and getting to build that up. And I hope that can stick within the industry as we get to 50% or, thereabouts with men versus men and women, not versus.
Thank you, Sophia. Cassandra, tell us a little bit about mentorship, and also you're at 2%, speaking for the whole aviation industry, but particularly for you. Is this going to change in the future? And do you think mentorship is a huge part of what's going to make these numbers change?
Oh yeah, I think so. And yeah, I got into Elevate in 2019 when you guys came up to Yellowknife to do the cross country tour, and I got to help host that day. And that was the first time that I had ever heard about Elevate. And I've been in the industry since 2016. And I just want to say, I wish that I knew about you guys as soon as I graduated from SAIT. because I had gone through some stuff at a previous employment. And I really think that if I had a mentor when I was an apprentice, that I would have handled the situations that I was dealing with a lot differently. And I just think that it would have really benefited me to have a female AME mentor when I was an apprentice. So I love promoting mentorship, because now, like, since I've been part of Elevate, it has been so amazing to have all of you guys. And like Sophia was saying, like to know that I have so many people that I can call up and talk to, and just, you know, and it's just a safe space where if something happens, I know that I can tell you guys and trust that it's just a conversation that we're having, and to get an honest opinion from somebody else who's a minority in the workplace. So I love Elevate, and I want to promote people becoming mentors and mentees. And I just think it's a really good part. And hopefully it will promote more people coming into the aviation industry. During that cross-country tour Wednesday, I was so excited that there was so many questions at the end of the maintenance day. I think it was 14 or something. And a lot of them, I think, were from high school kids asking us to tell them how to get what they should do in high school to prepare for a career in aviation. So it was really exciting that day.
You can get stuff off the internet, but it's nothing like having a mentor. So, you know, Melissa, you know, we'll just wrap this up really quickly here. Talking about mentorship and talking about STEM initiatives. I mean, we have a military mentorship program, a civilian mentorship program. I don't see why we can't extend this to any male-dominated industry program.
Yeah, and noting that we do have one of the comments was about like having the best mentor might not always be female, and we definitely have male mentors too. And it's not just about one mentor either. Like that's the other thing. You're gonna have 20 mentors. You know, all the mentors you like.
Yeah, Melissa, final words from you.
Everything that everyone was saying, it's completely true. And it's all about the mentorship and being kind to one another. I think that's a big thing too. Like I just remember helping somebody on an application process, and they're like, "Oh, you're helping me?" And you're like, "Well, that's what we're there for. We're there to be kind to one another and lift each other up."
Okay, we're gonna just take just questions only from the audience. And here's a question. What is something all of you wish you knew before starting to work and getting into the industry? And quick answers, because we are almost out of time. Sophia, you look like you want to jump in.
Clip-on ties are the way to go. That's what I wish someone had told me. Way more comfortable.
Okay. Melissa, something you wish you knew before starting to work and getting into the industry?
Maybe just learning patience, taking opportunities as they come.
Cassandra?
I would say wear knee pads from day one, not 1 year later. Take my personal health seriously right from the start of the career, because it's important.
Really good advice. Take your personal health seriously. Meg?
Oh, I don't know if she heard you.
Are you frozen, Megan?
Yeah, sorry, my internet just went down.
Oh, Meg,
Those
just
are
living
living.
before?
Yeah, as for me, what I wish I knew before, oh, so many things, but I guess I would have to say I wish I knew what I was capable of, just really what I had to offer, and you know, just knew more about what I could do, because it really had a negative effect on me in the beginning, and I think, you know, everything would have been so much different had I just known what I could do, you know. So
Yeah, that's mine too. My advice is always, you know, don't listen to that voice inside your head. My panel here knows I have a little name for it, but don't listen to the voice inside your head and let that stop you from following your dreams. Do what you want. Get a mentor. You can contact us at Elevate Aviation or Google other places that do mentorship. We will hook you up with someone to help you be successful. We have a minute left, and Sarah, it's all yours.
Great. I thought we just really quickly talk about the future, because it was about past, present, and future. So if there was what would you like to see the future of women in aviation look like? It could be numbers, it could be qualitative, quantitative, whatever you want. So we'll start with Melissa.
Yeah, I think I've said this a few times, but I would like to have the prefix of women. Like whenever I'm addressed, I'm a woman pilot. So I'm just a pilot. That's all. We don't say, "Oh, you're a male pilot."
I might
great.
start.
Hello, male pilot.
Cassandra, did you have something?
Yeah, I would just like to see more females on the hangar floor, you know, for it to be common to see another female AME and to get that number higher than 2%.
Awesome. Sophia?
Yeah, just diversity in general, right? Like it's, we are a young industry. Aviation's only just over 100 years old. So I think we're getting there. I know it's been, what was it, 2% in 1910, and we're at like 7-ish for pilots in 2020. So, or with 2021 now, but I think diversity, just continuing to grow, more people knowing that it's an option, and education continuing.
Thanks. And Meg, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just the same as everyone else, basically. You know, more females in the industry. I'd love to have a couple female coworkers that I can talk to and stuff, and just more education, more access to information, and having us know that this is a viable option and it's awesome.
Awesome. And then Kendra, do you have any thoughts?
I want to see more women realize the potential of their own economic security through this industry that we call aviation. And they will also find passion at the same time, because if you haven't noticed, everyone that's in this industry pretty much has passion. And so passion and economic security, COVID aside, come to aviation. Come to aviation, they'll find it.
That's awesome. So I think we'll get Nick to pull up. I think we have 3 more polls. And then if anyone has any additional questions, we probably have like 2, 3, 5 minutes to answer questions, so throw those in the Q&A.
I just want to answer these and be like, oh, I know.
Yeah, apparently we can't answer.
I know.
Cassandra to answer the polls.
Come on, I can vote.
Okay, and Kendra, is that right? Was the audience correct?
Yes, 17%.
Perfect. Next poll. I muted myself. I said one of the questions in the chat while we're waiting on the next poll is, have any of you had any close calls when flying or landing?
I didn't want to ask them that.
Oh, sorry, no,
No, it's okay.
Melissa, do you want to take this one, or do you want me to?
For sure, especially where we fly, it's very challenging conditions. I'm not going to say close call, but we're trained to land and to take off what we're supposed to do, and we know our limits too. So no.
That's good.
Yeah, I totally
Kendra,
agree.
go ahead. Okay, that was also correct. And I think we have one more poll question.
Yeah, and I think that's the coolest thing about the training in aviation is it's so emergency based in all levels. So you're ready and trained for stuff. And even after you deal with something, then you're like, oh gosh, like I handled that because of my training, like it kicked in. And you're like, yes.
You go in autopilot mode.
Yeah, you do.
I'm glad no one said the pylons.
Dark room with radar screens. I love it.
So, yeah, I think we have like 2 minutes left. So I don't know if there's anything else we want to talk about, or if we want to wrap it up. Kendra, I'll leave it to you to close us out.
Okay, you know what? I'm just going to ask you guys, Sophia, what would you tell someone that wants to come into aviation?
Go for it. Go for it. And just come in and figure out what it's all about. And especially to women, remember that you don't have to have every single quality that, you may think. Like, you just give her. Like, you don't have to, we're so bad as women to be like, well, I have to have this, and this, and this. And if I don't have all of them, I'm not applying. No, like, just try, like, give it a go, and you'll find something in aviation. I can almost guarantee it.
You are right. Melissa, what about girls who are told you have to be good at math and it scares them away?
You do not have to be good at math. I am not good at math, and Yeah. Luckily, I have my co-pilot sitting next to me. No, I'm kidding. But you're trained. Every single part of your day, you're trained to do that part, and somebody's going to be there to show you what to do. So you do not have to have a bachelor's degree in math. Yes, you do have to have some sort of number ideas, but
Times tables. Know your times tables.
yeah.
Cassandra, what do you want to say to convince young women to look at AMEs as a career?
Pretty much just what Sophia said. Just go for it. Just give it a try, and there's no harm done if you decide that it's not the career for you, because it's not for everybody, but I love it so much and it's so rewarding and exciting. So just go for it.
Meghan, what do you tell people that you know about the best job in the world, and you have it, and to come into air traffic services?
So it's an amazing career. You get to know that you're helping, these amazing pilots get to where they need to go safely. You get to talk to amazing people, and you get great views as well. I know that myself and pilots might debate on who gets the best view, but I get to see all kinds of different airplanes coming into my airport, and it is super cool.
Especially the pilots.
The reason I asked Meghan the question that way, and the reason they're laughing, is because we debate all the time who has the best job in the world. Is it the airport? Is it the pilot? Is it the air traffic controller? Is it aircraft maintenance engineer? And we will all say that we have the best job in the world. And so I say, if we're arguing over who has the best job in the world, obviously, you don't have one. Put yours up, Meg. No. If we're all debating on who has the best job in the world, obviously this is the best industry in the world. And I know Sarah might want to jump in on that debate, but it'll be, 5 against 1. So we win that one for today. And Sarah, thank you. Thank you for having us, and Amy and Jean and everyone at the museum and STEM sisters. We hope that we can work with you guys on different projects going forward. I think it'll be a lot of fun to get together and do some things together.
Yeah, this has been so inspiring and amazing. And thank you all for taking the time to share your experiences. And then I'll just, say thank you. And I'll let Amy close us out.
Thank you so much, guys. That was I'm gonna echo what Sarah said, and all the barriers and things that I've faced that really resonated with me as well. From having a little kid being surprised that women can be engineers, to having to ask for help to lift something. It sounds like something you don't think about, but it definitely is a barrier to the things that we do. So thank you so much, Sophia, Melissa, Cassandra, Meghan, and Kendra, for sharing your stories with us. And thank you to everyone for joining us. So we have one last door prize to draw, and Storm, you were the lucky winner. If you could just message me if you're in Alberta, that would be great. And so thank you again to the Aviation Museum and Elevate Aviation for partnering with us for this event. Just remember, so the recording of the event will be posted to the Alberta Aviation Museum webpage and Facebook on Wednesday. We'll also share on our social media. Our social medias are also re-shared in the chat for ease. Make sure to check out STEMS and Elevate for other upcoming events. And don't forget to check out the museum once they reopen to the public. So thank you so much again to everyone for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. If you were one of the door prize winners, if you could just stay on, and I'm just gonna try and talk to you guys in the chat a bit. So open up your chats, and if you could stay, but thank you so much again to everyone. This was very, very inspiring.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.